The 2025 season for the Commanders has turned into a nightmare nobody saw coming. 6 straight losses. A roster wrecked by injuries. And now, the question Nitrogen Monoxide 1 wants to answer. Should Jayden Daniels return this season? Because let me tell you something, Commanders Nation. What's happening in the DMV is not normal. We've got our franchise quarterback pushing to come back in a lost season. Key reinforcements finally getting healthy, and national analysts calling our season a non-stop torture device. And you know what? I'm telling you this. The next 3 weeks will define whether this organization has learned anything from its past mistakes. Stick around till the end, because the last story is going to blow your mind. The bomb just dropped in Washington. Jayden Daniels, our franchise QB, the 2024 Rookie of the Year, is pushing to get back on the field in a 3-8 season that's basically over. And here's the really wild part. According to ESPN, Week 14 against the Vikings is the realistic return date. Let me say that again. Week 14 against Minnesota. In less than 2 weeks, Daniels dislocated his left elbow, the non-throwing one, and even though the Commanders have him listed as week to week, internally they're already acting like he'll miss Monday Night Football against Denver. But here's the part that's driving me crazy. Jayden has been brutally honest about his mindset. If he's medically cleared, he wants to play. Period. He doesn't care about the record. He doesn't care about draft position. If the doctors give him the green light, he wants to be out there. And you know what? I think that says everything about the kind of competitor Jayden Daniels is. But now I'm asking you, is that the right move for the franchise? Because let me lay it all out. The organization has already had big picture talks with Daniels. Talks about turning a 3-week injury into a 5 or 6-week shutdown just to be extra cautious. And those are exactly the kind of conversations this team never had in the past. Remember Robert Griffin III? Remember how they let him play in that 2012 playoff game against Seattle with a wrecked knee? I'm telling you this, that decision ruined a promising career. And now, over a decade later, the same Robert Griffin III is publicly calling for Daniels to be shut down to protect him and improve draft position. The medical logic makes sense, I won't lie. Since it's the non-throwing elbow, once it's healed, Daniels should be able to run the full offense without messing up his mechanics. No long-term risk if he's fully healthy. And there's a football reason too. Daniels is a young quarterback who still needs live reps. Every snap is development. Every post-snap read is priceless experience. But here's the big but. We're 3-8. No playoffs. Nothing real to chase in the standings. And if Daniels comes back and gets hurt, again because the O-line can't protect him, or the defense can't keep games close, then what? Are we risking the future of the franchise for 6 meaningless games? Now I'm asking you, would you let Jayden come back? Because here's my truth. If Daniels is 100% medically cleared, if the doctors say there's no added risk, then let him play. Why? Because that kind of competitive fire is exactly what you want in a franchise quarterback. But if there's an NY doubt, any increased risk at all, then you sit him and protect your $50 million investment. The difference between 2025 and 2012 has to be this: smart decisions based on medical science, not pride or outside pressure. Adam Peters and Dan Quinn need to prove this organization has finally learned its lesson. Because Commanders Nation has seen this movie before, and it didn't end well. And here's the last detail that's got me thinking. Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown are expected to practice this week. If Daniels returns in Week 14, he'd have his top weapons back. That supporting cast makes the he needs reps argument stronger. But it also makes the wait until 20-20-6, when everyone's healthy, argument more tempting. This isn't black and white Commanders Nation. It's the grays. Decision this team has faced in years. And how they handle it will tell us everything about whether we've really changed as a franchise. If that surprised you, wait till you hear this. Because while everyone's focused on Jayden Daniels, there's a massive shift happening on the Commanders roster that could totally change how this team looks over the next few weeks. Noah Brown, Will Harris, and Drake Jackson are all on track to return. And let me tell you, this timing is nitrogen monoxide coincidence. Let's start with Noah Brown, because Commanders Nation knows the story. Well, 9th year in the league. Reliable vet. And the guy who caught the most iconic Hail Mary in recent franchise history against the Bears last year. That moment, that game-winning catch in the final seconds, that's Noah Brown. Brown's been on injury reserve since. Week 2 after a groin injury on Thursday night, football against Green Bay. He's had limited action this season. Just 3 catches for 36 yards before going down. But here's what nitrogen monoxide 1 is talking about. Brown now has a 21-day window to practice with the team before they either activate him or shut him down for the season. And you know what? I think the timing is perfectly lined up with Daniels. Possible return. Think about it. If Jayden comes back in Week 14 against Minnesota, he'd have Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown ready. That's a completely different receiving course from the patchwork group we've seen stumble through most of the fall. Last year, Brown played in 13 games and finished with 35 catches for 453 yards and a touchdown. Not Pro Bowl numbers, but solid. And in a season where injuries have forced constant lineup changes, reliability is worth its weight in gold. But that's nothing compared to what's coming on defense. Will Harris, our safety, broke his fibula in Week 3 and is officially back at practice after being placed in his 21-day activation window. And here's the really big news. Defensive end Drake Jackson has also been designated to return, opening his 21-day window. Now I'm asking you, what's been this team's biggest issue all season? Defense. NFL.com literally wrote that. The defense has taken the brunt of the blame during the 6-game losing streak and most of the season. Well, we're about to get 2 key defensive pieces back right when we need them most. Harris, before the injury, was a steady presence in the secondary. Not a highlight reel guy every week, but the kind of player who keeps the defensive structure intact. And in a defense that's been torched by big plays all year, we desperately need that structure. Drake Jackson on the D-line means more pressure on the quarterback, more versatility in defensive packages. It means Dan Quinn can finally rotate his front without burning out the starters. And after watching our pass rush vanish during this losing streak, I'm telling you this, we needed Jackson back yesterday. But here's the million-dollar question. Is it too little? Too late? We're 3-8. Playoffs are technically possible, but realistically dead. Does it even matter that these guys are coming back now? And here's my answer. Yes, IT matters. Why? Because this isn't just about 20-20-5. This is about building culture. It's about showing the young guys on this roster that you don't quit, that you play the last 6 games with the same fire as the first 6. And more importantly, it's about giving Adam Peters and Dan Quinn real data on who these players are when healthy. Noah Brown coming back gives Peters a read on whether he's worth re-signing in the offseason. Will Harris coming back gives Quinn a look at whether he can be part of the long-term secondary. Drake Jackson returning shows if he can be a reliable rotational piece, or if they need to upgrade the D-line. Commanders Nation, the easy narrative is seasons lost. These returns don't matter. But that's loser talk. The winner's mindset is using these last 6 games as auditions for 2026. It's building chemistry between Daniels and Brown. It's letting Harris and Jackson prove they can stay healthy through a stretch. And here's the final detail that's got me hopeful. If all these guys come back healthy and play well, suddenly Adam Peters' off-season shopping list gets shorter. Instead of needing 3 new wideouts, maybe you only need 1. Instead of needing 2 new safeties, maybe Harris is your guy. Every player who returns and produces is one less problem to solve in free agency. Or the draft dot, is it ideal? No. Do we wish these guys had been healthy all year? Of course, but this is where we are And now we've got to maximize what we've got. And just when you thought we were done, here comes the story that hurts, but that everyone needs to hear. NFL.com just dropped their updated power rankings, and the Commanders are sitting at number 26 in the league, 26 out of 32 teams. And the description they use for our season is brutal, a continuous torture device. Let me read you exactly what Eric Edholm wrote, because every word cuts deep. Not long ago, the Commanders were a few plays away from being 4-2, which has made the current 6-game losing streak feel like a continuous torture device. The defense has taken the brunt of the blame during the skid and most of the season, but the offense must hold up its end of the bargain. And you know what? I'm telling you this. Edholm is right. Completely, painfully, brutally right. Because that's exactly the right word. Torture. Not because we've been awful since week 1, but because we were so close to being good, and then everything fell apart. Remember those early season games? We were one defensive play away from beating Tampa Bay, one field goal away from beating Philly. We could have been 4-2, maybe even 5-1 if a couple bounces went our way. And then the roof caved in. But here's where Edholm really hits us where it hurts. It's clear Washington overestimated how close it was to being a Super Bowl team. And the shortcomings must be addressed this offseason. Overestimated. That word should be tattooed on every forehead in that building. Now I'm asking you, how the hell did we go from thinking we were contenders to sitting at 3-8 with a 6-game skid? The answer is complicated, but also simple. Injuries played a massive role, no doubt. Jayden Daniels hurt. Receivers hurt. Defensive pieces hurt. When your roster's constantly rotating, it's impossible to find rhythm, but Edholm points out something critical. The Commanders haven't played quality 3-phase football for most of the year. 3 phases. Offense, defense, special. Teams. And he's right. When the offense plays well, the defense collapses. When the defense shows up, the offense can't move the ball. And special teams? A disaster all year. No cohesion. No rhythm. No sense that all 3 units are working together toward the same goal. And that, Commanders Nation, is a coaching problem as much as a talent problem. Dan Quinn came here with serious defensive credentials. DC of the Legion of Boom took the Falcons to the Super Bowl, but this Commanders defense has been one of the worst in the league. How do you explain that? Is it talent? Scheme? Execution? Probably a mix of all 3. And on offense, Cliff Kingsbury was brought in to be innovative, to maximize Jayden Daniels. And when Daniels was healthy early on, we saw flashes of brilliance. But once he got hurt, the offense became one-dimensional. No plan B, no adaptability. EDHOLM ends with this. The rest of the game should focus on that. It's clear Washington overestimated how close it was to being a Super Bowl team, and the shortcomings must be addressed this offseason. And that last part is what worries me most. The shortcomings. Because let me tell you something about this league. The Super Bowl window is real, but it's also fragile. Look at the Eagles. Went to the Super Bowl in 20-20-2, collapsed in 2023, bounced back in 20-20-4. Look at the Niners. In the window for years but can't close the deal. The window doesn't stay open forever. The Commanders have Jayden Daniels on a rookie deal for 3 more years. That's the window. Those 3 years when you're franchise. QB is making $8 million a year instead of $50. That's when you've got cap space to build a full roster. That's when you've got to max out. And 2025 was supposed to be year 1 of that window. But instead of moving forward, we went backward. Instead of building momentum, we lost 6 straight. Instead of proving we're contenders, we proved we're pretenders. Now I'm asking you, can Adam Peters fix this in 1 offseason? Because that's the question that's going to define the next 3 years of this franchise. Peters needs to find defensive playmakers, add depth to the O-line, find a legit WR2 to pair with Terry McLaurin, fix special teams, and do all that while keeping the young core intact. But here's what gives me hope, and listen to me on this. Adam Peters is one of the best talent evaluators in the NFL. Came from San Francisco, helped build multiple Super Bowl rosters. He knows how to spot talent. He knows how to build through the draft. And more importantly, he knows this roster has major holes. The question isn't whether Peters knows what needs fixing. The question is whether he can execute those fixes in one offseason. Because Commanders Nation, I'm going to say something you might not want to hear. If 2026 looks like 20-20-5, this Super Bowl window closes before it ever really opens. We're at a crossroads. These next 6 games aren't about playoffs. They're about evaluation, about figuring out exactly which pieces are part of the future and which ones need to go. About giving Peters all the info he needs to make smart decisions in March. And for the fans calling for a tank to improve draft position, I'm telling you this. I get the logic, but that's not the answer. You know why? Because a losing culture is toxic. Once it starts, it's almost impossible to stop. Ask the Browns. Ask the Jets. Ask any franchise that's been rebuilding for a decade. The Commanders need to finish these last 6 games playing hard. They need to show that even if the record sucks, the effort is there. They need to give the young guys on this roster something to believe in. Because when 2026 comes, those same young guys will be the ones who decide if we're contenders or pretenders again. This season has been torture. No sugarcoating. But torture eventually ends. And what comes after the torture is what really matters. Do we learn from it? Does it make us stronger? Or do we let it break us? That's the question Adam Peters, Dan Quinn, and this entire organization has to answer over the next 6 games and the offseason ahead. Commanders Nation, these 3 stories show us exactly where we stand as a franchise. Jayden Daniels pushing to return in a lost season. Reinforcements finally coming back when it might be too late. And the harsh truth that we overestimated how close we were to contending. But here's what I believe. This season doesn't define who we are. It defines who we can be. If we make the right choices, if we protect Jayden, if we build the right roster around him, if we learn from these mistakes instead of repeating them. So drop your thoughts in the comments. Should Jayden return or be shut down? Do these reinforcements really matter in a lost season? And can Adam Peters and Dan Quinn fix this roster in one off season? Because Commanders Nation needs to have these conversations now, not in April when it's too late. That this video gave you a new perspective. If it made you think differently about this season, then subscribe to this channel. Because we're not just another highlight channel. We're a family of Commanders fans who live and breathe burgundy and gold, who suffer together in losses and celebrate together in wins. Hit like if you think Jayden should return. Hit dislike if you think he should be shut down. And share this video with every Commanders fan you know, because these conversations are too important to have alone. See you in the next video. Commanders Nation. And remember, hail to the Redskins.